Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Accelerate and Multiply live stream. Today I have a fascinating guest with me here, a former elite athlete. He has trained with Olympians. He has personally interviewed people like Jack Canfield, Dr. John D. Martini, Mark Beaumont, Gary Ridge. But he was also not just voted the best looking man, but he was also voted the best man of the year for supporting women in business in 2016. So, Adam Strong, my friend, welcome to the live stream. Great to see you there.
I'm excited to be here, Dan. You know me. I love it. I love conversations. I'm really excited to be here.
Now, you've been a former elite athlete yourself, and you're also training with Olympians in distance running. How did you get into this sport?
Interestingly enough, it was actually at the age of I got into it at quite a young age. I was, I suppose, encouraged by my father originally. I didn't particularly have a great childhood at the to begin with, and and I was going through the motions as such, as kind of as you do when you're a kid. You go through ups and downs, especially when you go through puberty and stuff like that, right? And because of the bad childhood, I suffered from alopecia and so forth. But I'd suffered from I got bullied a lot, and it really affected my self-confidence levels, and it really affected my mindset. And I was really, as a kid, I was kind of very introverted, and and I didn't really, I didn't like to interact with people, and it was kind of awkward in a way. Do you know what I mean? And so my father encouraged me to. He started up running about, I don't know, 18 months before, and he was like, why don't you get into running? It kind of does well for me. Why don't you try it? And I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. Well, I can get a shot, but at the time I was an asthma sufferer. So I was an asthma sufferer, and all the asthma sufferers, which are probably listening, and they're like, what, you go into running? That's crazy. So I got into running, but I was an asthma sufferer, and I remember turning up at the running track, and there was a lady sitting behind the reception, actually, and she was like, hey, so how can I help? Because I actually turned up on my own. I didn't really have a lot of support structure around when I was growing up. I had an absent father, and my mother really didn't take much of an interest in what I did. And so I turned up on my own, 11 years old, saying, hey, so I'm interested in joining your athletics club. And this, sort of mid-40s lady said, okay, what discipline are you interested in? I was like, I'm interested in long distance running. She went, okay. But then I told her I was an asthma sufferer, and she went, oh, okay, that's interesting. So then she introduced me to the coach at the time, and we talked about our expectations, I suppose, more than anything else. I remember the very first time I turned up, I saw these fast sprinters, track and field athletes, and whatever it is, and I got really intimidated, and you feel really uncomfortable in being in this place where you're like, I'm way out of my comfort zone here. I'm way out of my league. Do you know what I mean? And you start to get these negative thoughts that going through your head, and you start to think to yourself, I feel like this is a bit of a mistake. And then when we started even doing the warm-up was a struggle for me. I could barely run 100 meters without having, I suppose, a chronic asthma attack, I suppose. So it was a real challenge. But I guess after some perseverance, and I suppose through self-discipline more than anything else, I started getting better, right? I started getting better. My time started to make some improvements. And within 9 months, my asthma disappeared altogether, actually, which is kind of crazy. So, and then this is how I met my former training partner as well. And I really kind of met my first proper coach about sort of a year after that. And his name was Alex McGee, actually, a Scottish guy. And he, along with my former training partner, Samo Farah, he came from Somalia originally. So he had like very little English. And similar kind of way to me, he was bullied a lot because of his lack of English. And, he was black as well. And you kind of get, bullied and things like that. So we kind of had similar, I suppose, situations and circumstances. But we used each other's competitive nature, I suppose, to motivate each other so that we could become successful athletes.
That's incredible. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us here on the live stream. If you're joining us live, type in the chat box below, hello. If you're joining us on the replay, type in replay and come and join us. So here you are, you've got asthma. You've got an absent father. Mother's not paying too much attention. You've got alopecia, and you better fill us in on what alopecia is, because I had to Google it before. Somebody said to me, Daniel, your personality style loves to Google things. And I said, bullshit. Here I am Googling alopecia. So fill us in. What is alopecia and how does it impact the body?
Yeah, impact. So alopecia is basically a common form of stress and worry. I'd say back probably about 25 years or so, it was not as common. It was very, I suppose, kind of new to medical practices and stuff. And I remember actually having to kind of be, I suppose, a human guinea pig, in fact, going to regular hospital visits and trying different meds and whatever it is. And I'm like, this doesn't feel cool to me, you know? So yeah, it's a common form of hair loss. You know, you get a lot of celebrities, you know, it can happen to anyone. You can wake up one day, and I remember when I was a kid, when I woke up one day, it all just came out in handfuls, literally just out in handfuls, and it was all gone. It's crazy. And, you know, and yeah, do you know what I mean? That's a quick haircut, right? So, yeah, and I haven't really calculated how much money I've saved in haircuts. But yeah, so it's a common form of where it can happen to anyone. It probably affects more women than it does men mentally, because obviously, you know, self-imagery and things like that. So, but you know, I've been like this for pretty much most of my life now. It doesn't bother me at all, as you can tell. I'm a change man.
I've got a cousin in Australia, super successful, and his hair fell out, and somebody cracked a joke at him, and he said, "I'm not bald. This is a solar panel for a sex machine."
That's so funny. That's so funny.
So you're growing up. Dad's absent-minded. Mum's out there doing her own thing. You've got alopecia, and you know today's conversation is about getting your mind focused. You had asthma. You joined a running club, and then you started to get good at it, and the asthma disappears. What were you focusing on back then? Because obviously there was things there that were traumatic. How did you take your mind off those things that were traumatic and put them on what was important? How did you do that?
Well, I think what running allowed me to do is it became kind of a distraction of life, you know, and, you know, I got into, so I trained Tuesdays, Thursdays, and then I'd compete Saturdays and Sundays. So it would take up quite a huge chunk of my time. And as a kid, I was actually a really busy kid, as in like, I'd also commute to go to school, you know, jump on the train, take 45 to an hour there, 45 to an hour back as well. So I'd get up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock. I'd train on a Tuesday and Thursday. This is not including activities. I didn't really have a lot of time as a kid, if I'm honest with you, where all the other kids may have played video games and kind of all the other stuff and whatever it is. I didn't get a lot of time, if I'm honest with you. But I think for me is just yeah, it kind of gave me this, it got me into this kind of zone, I suppose, Dan. You know, it got me into a zone, and it kind of got me to what's the word I'm looking for? Probably detract myself from everyday life. You know, kind of running was kind of, to me, was a different dimension. You know what I mean? It was a different dimension, and it was just a kind of place where I was happy at the time. Well, not initially, because it was bloody hard training, but but then as I started to getting better, I started to get those small wins under my belt. I started gaining confidence. You know what I mean? I started gaining confidence, and I started gaining self-esteem, and I started to see things a little bit differently. And then, this is where I suppose I created some really early habits on, self-discipline and being super time productive and, and kind of things that a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners aspire to today's world. I got them like way, way, way before even starting my own first business, even though that was around the first time. But honestly, there's so much I learned from that time. 11 was a very special age for me.
So here you are, you're doing sports, you're conquering asthma, you're managing your time effectively, and you've also started your first business. What was your first business?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, back in the day, we didn't particularly have a large amount of money. We lived off the state. We lived in this, we call it state-owned property, which was like a tower rise. We were in one of those, and my mum never worked. So there wasn't a lot of wealth that went around. It was myself and my younger brother and her. And so I remember doing this actually. And I remember so crystal clear as if it was yesterday. I was walking in the nature reserve, which was about 15 minutes from where we lived, and just kind of observing, just kind of walking and taking. And I started seeing all these golf balls, from where golfers are played like next door. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. So next day I decided to go back with a bucket and I started collecting all these golf balls. I started jumping in the stream, started foraging in the bushes. I started literally just going out on a big, finding spree. And then, I didn't even have money to buy Wellington boots. I just take my shoes and socks off and jump in. And some of it would be like boggy, sandy, sea type of water. So it wasn't clean water at all. But anyway, I did that. I got in there and then I started walking around the fairway and all these golfers started to come up to me and they're like, hey, so I'm just curious why 11-year-old boy is walking around the fairway. You're going to get hurt. They were concerned about my safety. And I was like, well, I'm actually rescuing golf balls. And they're like, oh, let me see what's in your bucket. And they're like, okay. So they started inspecting some of my golf balls, like some were in. So some of the things that were really important for a golf was, brand was important, condition was really important, even the color was really important, actually, depending on the time of day and stuff. But it was an 18-hole golf course, and I don't know about you, Dan. I'm not much of a golfer, but I can tell you now, from a golfer's perspective, is that if you've only got 2 balls and you've got about 6 holes to go, you're panicking. You're panicking and you're sweating. You're thinking, I'm going to lose some couple more balls. You know what I mean? So I always hanged out kind of around hole 12, which is where everyone was kind of panicking. And so they started, searching and sieving through my bucket. And this is where I started learning entrepreneurship. This is where I started to learn negotiation and sales. So they'd offer me X and they'd say, hey, so I'll give you like $6 for this. And I'd be like, but I know that this ball is actually worth $15 brand new. So how about we do this? How about we go for 8? Okay. And you get a great deal and you get the ball for practically half price. I mean, it's practically brand new. And then actually, after the end of that, we both walked away with smiles on our faces. They got a great deal because they've only paid half price for a brand new ball. And I get a good price because, just by all that negotiation and haggling and stuff like that. And some people would say no, and I wouldn't take it personally, of course. I would just continue with my bucket, right? But then, one day I'd go back to my mom I remember the first time I did this, I go back to my mom and I had these bag full of coins. And she's like, what did you do? Did you go rob a bank or something? I'm like, what did you do? And I told her and she went, wow. And then I basically gave some of the money to my mum for groceries and milk and bread and so forth. And then I kept the rest myself for savings and stuff. So, that's how I ended up. That was my real first entrepreneurial, I suppose, journey as such. And, and there was something, and we did something else when we moved across town as well, which was, again, another fascinating. It doesn't bother me, Dan, to get out of my comfort zone. Like, if the tough gets going, then you just got to go do it. You know what I'm saying?
I love what you said there. And I was having a conversation with a gentleman on Saturday, and he said, Daniel, some people, they go to a course. They go Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and they start their business on Monday. He says, I go to the course, the same course, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and still a couple of years later, I'm still waiting to start my business. And I said to him, well, I'm the type of person who joins the course on Friday, but I've already started pre-selling on Thursday. And your story here, it's a great metaphor for life. You've taken your shoes off, you've taken the socks off, you've rolled up your pants, you're walking around in the bog, and somebody else is still out there waiting to get their wellies. And if it was a lot of people like me, I'd be waiting to get the hunters. Well, once I got enough money to get the 100-pound wellies, then I'll begin. But it's a great metaphor for life, isn't it? Somebody's out there getting their feet dirty. They're in the water, they're in the deep end, and you're still thinking about it. But this person like yourself, you're out there making money. And, it's supply and demand, isn't it? The supply is running low. They say with golfers, they don't go crazy. They just lose their balls. So the supply balls left. They're out on the course. And for them, what's more expensive? Turning around at the 12th hole and walking home, or paying £8 for a ball, saving £6 and continuing.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a great service that you're offering, and I know what you mean when you do this. We were in pawnbroking, and we used to get young guys coming into our shop, and they'd bring us bags of balls in, and my dad would go through them because he was a golfer, and he'd say, well, we'll give you this amount for these balls. These ones here, these are for practice. We'll give you this amount. And these ones here, these are just ones that you can hit in the river. And so we had this constant flow of balls coming in to our shop. And the same thing exactly. The golfer comes in, he picks it up, he looks at it. Okay, that's a Titleist. Well, I'll put that one over there. And then we used to send them out with a bag of 25 balls for about $10. But it was a commodity.
Love it. People
loved it. They were always buying it. And golfers, after a while, doesn't matter how good they are, they lose their balls.
Yeah. That's true.
A lot of people need a lot of balls to get into business. So you're out there on the field. You're 11 years of age. Out of curiosity, what did you do with your money?
Yeah, good question.
For not even a teenager, it's an 11-year-old.
Yeah, it's a good question. What did I do with my money? Well, what I did is I literally just saved it, if I'm honest with you. I put it into a high, one of those children's high interest savings account. And, I saved a lot of my money. Obviously, I spend a little bit, of course, but I didn't really, it wasn't like huge amounts of money. I mean, some days, yeah, of course. I mean, like, I might make 50, 60 quid or whatever it is, but which is quite a lot of money back in the day, right? So it completely depends, I think. But most of the time, I'd stick it in savings and save it for a rainy day.
So just out of curiosity for our friends who are joining us, what was your first business, or what was your first job? I remember my first job, other than washing mum and dad's car, we started a car wash on the side of the street. We had the car wash. And then after that, I was a paper boy. And I remember enjoying my $2. It was about $2 back then. I'd go work for a couple of hours, and I'd earn $2. After that, my other uncle owned a local dry cleaners. So I'd go down there and I'd press the handkerchiefs. I was the chief. But the deal was, if I found copper coins in the washing machines or the dryers, they were mine to keep. And so I'd go through all the pockets and all the machines and pull out the copper coins, and he got to keep the silver ones, which 5 cents back then bought you a bag of frogs. It was a lot of money.
Absolutely.
So you've been on this journey. Dad's absent-minded. Mum's out there doing her own thing. You're taking your shoes off. You're making money. You're bringing home money. You've already had your first sports coach. You've overcome alopecia. You've got rid of your asthma. And then as you get into your teens, what's happening in your teens? Is everything going well, or is there more challenges for you to face?
I mean, it was always challenges to face. I mean, when I was growing up, I literally, for me, I literally paid for everything: my education, my college, my university, my books, my holidays. Literally everything came out of my own personal pocket. No one else had contributed at all. I remember my my very first. This is going to make you laugh. One of my very first jobs actually is I was trolley boy in like shopping carts. I was collecting shopping carts at the age of 14, right? So when the supermarket had closed, or maybe a couple of hours before, I'd go around collecting all the shopping carts, right? And again, just collect them, go around the parking lot and whatever it is. I used to get paid good money. And I used to do, that was almost, I got really good at it. I just literally just put my headphones in, listened to my music for about 6 hours, collected all the shopping carts going around, right? And just literally, at the end of, and then they pay me on a weekly basis. I was actually earning more money than one of my parents, which is crazy. So yes, and then I was doing full-time education as well as my running career as well, which is kind of crazy. So that was my first real, I suppose, job as such, and collecting shopping carts. But my real job was actually at the age of 16 when I actually worked at McDonald's. I mean, you probably had a McDonald's job, Dan, and most people here listening have had a McDonald's job, right?
My sister-in-law, she was the crew leader, and my 14-year-old niece, she's just started McDonald's first shift last week.
Boom.
And I ate it 2 days ago.
And literally, you can't like, a lot of people would take the mickey out of, working at McDonald's, but McDonald's is like an idiot-proof business, right? You can teach a 16-year-old boy like me to do pretty much whatever it is. And I just loved McDonald's. It was my first real job. I remember turning up at the interview. I got paid £3.35 to be exact. See, I even remember. That's crazy, right? And I did that part-time. I was full-time college, pretty much doing so pretty much full-time athletics as well, which is crazy. So I was a very busy 16-year-old, and I got really good at it, Dan. Really enjoyed it. I got within 2 years, I became a shift manager, whatever that is. And then by the time I got to 21, I was running a restaurant which was turning over £9 million, 100 staff at Christmas time. It was insane. So, and you learn a lot from there. You learn a lot of leadership practices. You learn how to deal with people. You learn how to communicate effectively. And believe it or not, that again, I was actually one of the very first places where I met my first real mentor, my first real business mentor, and his name was Mark Mayer. And Mark was, I saw Mark to me was like a father figure for me. That he, I highly respected him for what he did, and he would always point out to me, things about how I could make improvements, or some of my teaching points, or where I could learn, or which areas of the business that I should go and focus on, and stuff like that. And, he really respected me, and I really looked up to him and stuff like that. And, I even remembered his name because, he really made an impact of me, of my McDonald's journey. But, that was fantastic. I really enjoyed my time at McDonald's. I really did. It was just such a great learning experience.
So you've had training in McDonald's, and one of my friends, she was very high up in McDonald's in South Africa and in Australia, and the standard is incredibly high, and some of the training you get is the best in the world. So you've had some of the best training, you've met your mentor, and something that people often ask you on a regular basis is, how can you become so action-oriented? So we're into your mid-20s now, early 20s. You're already managing a business with 100 staff, £9 million sterling in turnover. How do you remain action-oriented with so much noise in the environment?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think for me is I conditioned my mind at a very young age. For me, I have this conditioned, I suppose, result-orientated mindset. Like, for me, I'm always trying to strive forwards. I'm always striving towards performance and improvement. my belief is that if you are not moving forward, you are moving backwards. Okay, and no one really wants to move backwards, right, Dan? You can't go. You either go in one direction or the other direction, right? So for me, how do I get to this state of, I suppose, this action-taking mindset? I suppose. Well, it's number one through self-discipline. You have to self-discipline yourself. You have to. Everyone has goals and aspirations, Dan, right? All of us do. You know, we all want financial success. We all want, health. We all want wealth. We all want happiness. You know, we all want in abundance as well. We don't want it in small things. We want it in abundance. And I think if you want to achieve things in life, if you want to get the most out of life, then you have to self-discipline yourself. You have to prepare. And here, when I say by prepare, you have to make short-term sacrifices for long-term benefits. And what I mean by that is, you know what, the world right now, it's just kind of crazy. There's so much going on. There's so many distractions. Most people are working from home, all of that kind of stuff. But how can you change your environment? How can you surround yourself with different people? How can you change? How can you condition your mind? And all of the things that you should be doing right now is thinking to yourself, well, okay, this is where I'm at, right? But I want to get to here, which is a big leap. But how am I going to do that, right? Rather than think strategy and about how, go back to why. Why am I doing these things? Start to question yourself. Start to look at yourself in the mirror and say, why do I want to do this? What motivates me? What gets me out of my bed every day? What makes me hungry? You know, what drives my passion? You know, so for me, especially, probably in the last year or so, one of the things that I did is going with the flow. And what I mean by that is, really aligning yourself in terms of your values. You know, we all have values in life, okay? Whether we live by those values is a different matter. And whether we compromise those values is also a different matter. So for me, like my values never get compromised. 100%. I stick to my values. I would never sacrifice my values because that is my genetic DNA. That is my makeover. That sets me as the person. So if I change my DNA, then I'm going to attract a different tribe. I'm going to attract a different energy. I don't want to do that. I'm in a happy place right now. I've got good energy. I've got flow. People know me for a particular reason. And otherwise, this is where people get a little bit confused in terms of their clarity. They don't know which direction they want to go in, things like that. But if you want to get yourself into action, you really got to take action. You've got to stop talking and actually do something about it. And I see so many people just doing this. They talk, they rabbit, but they never take action. All because of insecurities, fear, limiting beliefs that they put upon themselves, or whatever reason that they decide, whatever excuse, that they want to come up with. This is the reason why people don't actually achieve the results that they desire.
I love how you talk about the yap. When I was in the UK, I went over there New Year's Eve of 2002. I landed in Heathrow and I went straight down to Temple Bar and I experienced the UK British pub culture. And I've never watched the soccer, or you call it the football over there. And the guys who were commentating in the pubs about the football, and I just thought to myself, these are just guys, are backseat drivers. They're here. I would have done this. I would have done that. If I was the ref, I would have done this. I would have done that. If I was the coach, I would have done this. I would have done that. I would have set that plan. I thought to yourself, why don't you just bloody get out in the field yourself and do it? and they would exhaust themselves in the bar, get blind, talking the talk. But there was no get up and go in them, and none of them would do it themselves. And I think this happens with a lot of people. It's very easy to talk. And I've learned over the years, it takes about 95% of your mental energy just to begin. And I think a lot of people don't have that energy to begin. And so it's easy to stand on the sideline. It's easy to talk and yap. But once you get out there, you've got to start to face your obstacles. And I like what you're saying here about self-limiting beliefs. A lot of people who don't even start have their own limiting beliefs. They have
exactly.
If they have to start to move forward, they've got to face them, and there's more fear in facing it than actually achieving the goal, the outcome, or the result. So over the years, what have you done to be able to break through your mental or emotional blockages? What are the ones that have faced you and then you've overcome them? What have you had to overcome?
Well, we've talked about my journey with regards to getting into athletics and stuff, you know, and at the beginning where I had I was going to say where I was wearing a sports cap. You know, I must have gone through I suppose over a dozen sports caps, Nike, Adidas, all of that kind of stuff, because I was so ashamed about the way I looked. You know, I wore a cap until I was 16. You know, that was like 6 years almost, you know, which is crazy. So if you see my school pictures you'll see me, I'm the only kid that has the cap, you know, with my blazer and tie and whatever it is. And, you know, the odd spots here and, you know, it is. But, you know, that was me. I think for me is that it's an ongoing journey. Is there any particular situation where my mindset's been affected by the results that I didn't get? Sure, all the time. It's an ongoing journey. It's an ongoing battle. But I think one thing that you've got to learn from is that there's no such thing as failure, right? There's no such thing. I see them as learning points in your life. You know, you reflect and you think to yourself, well, hang on a second. How is it that I could have made this situation better? Did I actually turn up in my A game? You know, so a lot of people, they really kind of are affected by failure, I suppose, or not success or whatever it is. But essentially you have to really question yourself first of all. So was my intention, did I turn up with an A class or was I an A player? Okay. Did I go all in? Because I mean, you know me, Dan, quite well. I'm an all in or not at all type of person. You know, if I'm going to do something, right, I'm going to go all in or I'm not going to bother. There's no in between the middle. There's no faffing. There's no fighting around. None of that. It's either all in or not at all. Yeah. So you either commit and go or not bother. So I think that's the first question you have to ask yourself. Secondly, you have to ask yourself is, okay, so if my intention wasn't as good as what it could have been, what do I need to do if I was to repeat this process again? If I was to, I don't know, launch a project, you know, whatever it is that we see, whatever circumstances we're in right now, how could we have changed our situation? Rather than blaming others, and people are very good at pointing fingers, right? You know, and blaming others for whatever it is their circumstances are right now, or the fact that they haven't achieved this or they haven't achieved that, or whatever it is. I can guarantee you, listeners, that for every finger that you point at people, there will always be 5 fingers pointing back at you, because you have to take personal responsibility. You know, if you want results in life, you want success, you want happiness and abundance and wealth, you have to take personal responsibility and grab life by the balls and make it happen for yourself. No one else is going to make it happen.
And if you lose your balls, Adam will find them on hole 12 and he'll sell them to the highest bidder.
Exactly. You got it.
Who was it? There was a book by Ken Blanchard many years ago, and it was called The 1 Minute Manager. And he talked about feedback, and he said there's no failure, there's only feedback. But a lot of people don't like the feedback. And we talk to our daughter about it. We say, sweetheart, we're going to give you some feedback. And the feet get planted on the ground and the head goes over there. And we say, come more. And Chinese man's like, look at me. But what happens is if you don't get those valuable learnings, you've got to keep repeating the same thing over and over again. It's the learning that's valuable. And if you get that learning, it's like winning a game of Street Fighter down at the arcades. If you get that final move, finish him, next round, and you move on.
Exactly.
And so failure is part of success. And I think today, Adam, in my opinion, it's like people want to have pleasure with no pain. They want to have sex without foreplay. They just want to swipe to the left and get the right here, right now. And we live in a fast-paced world. When I was growing up, it was the 1980s, and there was a thing called lay-by. And if I wanted something, I had to pay the price in advance. And so I remember there was I think it was a transformer and I really wanted it. And it was about this big, and it was probably about $25. And my mum said, if you want it, then you got to put 50 cents a week on it. So I'd do my chores. I'd walk across to the toy shop. I'd put my 50 cents on it, and I'd ask the shopkeeper, I think it was called Toy World. I said, could I have a look? And he'd bring it out, show me. I'd look at it. Wasn't allowed to play with it. He'd put it back. Next week, 50 cents until I owned it. And the appreciation that I had for that thing was incredible. You know, it's a toy. I would wash it. I would clean it. I would store it away. But it had so much more value because I had to pay the price in advance. Where today's world is very different. You can get anything that you want, but the condition and the catch is now you got to pay for it for the rest of your life. And so easy come, easy go, but you carry the debt and the burden forever. It's like a house, 30 years, 40 years for a lot of people. Get it refinanced, pull the money back out, get it refinanced, spend it, just keep spending. And so that was our generation. What year were you born in?
Same again, in the 80s.
Yeah, I was 1980, and I remember that. I remember my first car was $2,500, and that was an expensive car.
What did you buy? Did you buy a Rolls Royce or something for that kind of money? Jeez.
I bought a Datsun. It was a 1971 Datsun 1600. It even had a Venetian blind in the back window.
Wow, that's
had
classic.
Vinyl seats, and I paid $2,500 for it. And then my parents went dollar for dollar for me to restore it. So I paid $2,500. They put $2,500 in, and so the joy of having that car was amazing because it was hard to come by. There's a lot of work in advance. And so times are changing. So you're out there, you're building your business, and tell me, what are you up to right now in business? Where are you taking your business? What's happening over there in the UK market for you?
Well, most of my business is international, as you know. And one of the things that we did this year is because of the pandemic and things like that, is that I moved actually really, really fast, really, really quickly. And I decided to put on a summit called the Game Changers Summit. And we essentially collaborated with some of the world's leading industry authorities in entrepreneurship, marketing, branding, all of that kind of stuff. And we put on a summit. We launched. So we went from idea to launch in less than 7 weeks. Which was crazy. It was a 30-day summit. So we did content for 30 days solid. In fact, I think it was maybe a little bit more actually. And so we did that for like 30 days. I interviewed Jack Canfield, Dr. John DeMartini, Sharon Lecter, some of the big boys in the entrepreneurial world. And we had a lot of fun. It was just ridiculously amount of hard work. On top of that, I had a newborn baby as well. So I would not advise anyone to go do that, of course. Not the way that I did things. And then we obviously launched the podcast, the Game Changers Experience. And then we did, then I'm working on, for 2021, we're actually going to be launching the Game Changers Summit again, which I'm really super excited about. I'm going to be bringing in the cavalry, man. Seriously, we're going to be bringing in some real hotheads. It's going to be live as well. We're going to do some live stuff as well. It's going to be really fantastic. And then on top of that, we're going to start with a TV. We're also going to look into TV as well. So looking into launching a TV channel as well of some sort. What else we've got? And the other thing that we've got working on right now is we're behind the scenes is actually launching our accelerator program for our global audience, which is mainly for six-figure entrepreneurs and creative entrepreneurs and business owners that want to gain greater clarity, increase their productivity, but more importantly, they want more success and results and more impact.
Epic. So make sure you keep me posted for that one. I want to be a part of it. And I know it's going to be a big thing there for you. Now, I know you're a busy man, and I want to, first of all, get deeper into your mind. So I'm going to shoot you 5 rapid-fire questions.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. I'm looking forward to this. Okay, go.
And you got to go deep. So out of everything in your life, what frustrates you the most and why?
Incompetence.
Why?
Why does it? Purely because I am impatient. I like to move fast. I like to move quick. I don't have time for incompetence. I just want to move. I'm just an action taker. That's probably pretty much why.
What's been the most embarrassing moment in your life?
Oh, embarrassing moment. Oh, embarrassing moment. Come back to that. Not sure about that one.
You're an avid reader. What one book has had the most impact on your life?
Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill.
What did you learn?
Interestingly enough, well, it kind of got me to learn more about a different prospect of what success looks like from my perspective. It really disrupted the conventional methods of, I suppose, creating success in life. Very different from the way we grew up in school. So that's why I kind of loved that, and it just gave me some great insights.
And as you've built your business through your younger years to your older years, what one mental or emotional block has held you back the most?
Self-confidence. I think that would probably apply to quite a few people, but self-confidence, I think, is probably the biggest mental and emotional block. And it's taken years I had more failures than I have successes, especially in my athletics journey, but you learn more from your losses than you do from your wins.
And for somebody who had low self-confidence right now, who is struggling with it, what piece of advice would you like to share with them?
Talk to people. I would just say talk to people, be more open with them, and just start to build relationships with people. Surround yourself with who you become at the end of the day. If you want more confidence, then go around and hang out with confident people, right? If you want to be broke, then go hang out with broke people, right? So again, you surround yourself with who you become.
Incredible. Champion effort. There's the round of applause. Well, Adam, ladies and gentlemen, we've been joined by Adam Strong today, the founder of The Game Changer. And I want you to follow him. Make sure you head over to his social media pages today. You can go to his website, adamstrong.net. There's going to be a new launch of a new summit coming up very shortly. So the last one was epic, was off the hook, and the next one's going to be bigger and better than it was before. And if you know a little bit about Adam, he's always going to push himself to make it the best experience for you. So Adam, thank you so much for your time today, and I wish you all the best and have a wonderful week, mate. And I'll see you soon.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Great to see you.